Back to the Dan Qian, Min Meng. Feel the legs sprouting up from the ground and gripping you as though here, and they actually grip the sacrum, but you can imagine it's here. And then you can feel the part of your spine dangling down from here. The final lumbar vertebra and the sacrum and the tail just hanging. For that, I have to relax the legs. If my legs are pushing up too much, then they'll crush in, come up and push in on this point. I want this point here to be opening. So my sacroiliacs have to free up either side of the sacrum. Feel the sacrum and tail wanting to descend. That will bring them forward slightly. And that will allow the upper heart and the head to lift. So this feeling of suspension and this feeling of the thymus wanting to ascend upwards. If you manage to release the sacroiliacs just a little, then you'll feel the 2 feet slightly independent of each other, wanting to play. You're wanting to move from leg to leg. You're wanting to turn. This posture of riding horse is quite artificial. It's quite an imposition. We want to feel the movement within it. Feel the breathing. And now let's mark the breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. There's a lovely quote from Luce Irigaray, who's a Belgian psychoanalyst and philosopher. And she says, to breathe by myself allows me to move away from a sociocultural placenta. So this idea that, when we're in the womb, we're connected to the mother, we're breathing through the umbilical from the mother. And when we come out of the womb, we start breathing. So even before that umbilical is cut, the baby has to start breathing. So it's now taking air into its lungs by itself. The mother isn't assisting. And this, if you like, it is our connection to nature, our first connection to a nature beyond the mother. It's through the breath. Now, what tends to happen as the baby grows up is that umbilical is replaced by another umbilical, this connection to the sociocultural placenta. And that is governed by language, particularly by this incessant chatter in the head. So most spiritual disciplines that I've come across recommend using the breath as a way of breaking the domination of language and that anxious head. That's all we're trying to do here. And it's why it's so difficult when we meditate, sit there and you're trying to concentrate on the breathing, but the words, the stream of consciousness always comes back in because we're so dependent upon that language connection to our culture. That's what we're trying to break. Breathing in, breathing out. So we set something up, a simple exercise like this, that requires us to use our willful mind. Then once it's set up, we just relax it. I mean, in particular, we relax it from the one into the two. So it's the one mind, the one dominant mind, but it's the two sides of the body. So we let the mind go so that this can get actually into the body. And it will always feel then like it's alternating, like it's beginning to tip, like you're on a listing ship. And then breathe up. So breathing in and then breathing out. And then just back to the horizontal. Breathing is this constant exchange. You're bringing something of the outside in, and then you're sending something of the inside out. And now taking it down, breathing in the ground, breathing out the ground. And then back to riding horse. So that's breathing, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. breathing in. Now we just want to do it a little bit different. This is more like yield and attack. Yield and attack is still breathing. It's not simple breathing from the lungs and the diaphragm. What I do as I reach out, that is, if you like, sending myself out in order to find something which I then bring in. And so the reaching out is the image of the hypodermic. So I'm inserting the needle into whatever it is I'm trying to draw from. And then I suck up the plunger. So this is actually the in-breath. This is where I'm actually drawing some of the outside into myself. So I extend and then I suck. What we want to feel is that sense of drawing. You can think of tentacles, like these two tentacles coming out from you in order to capture something. And then what sort of emotional shift does the octopus have to go through to go from reaching out to go to sucking in? That's what we want to try and feel. So I want to feel the turn, the shift in my mood in order to effectuate this drawing in. So I send something out and then I suck something in. You can still breathe the normal way with your lungs, but it's just a different visualization. I'm using it now more to exchange with the world with my arms and legs rather than simply my nose. Reaching out, and then I draw something into myself. Reaching out, drawing in. Penetrating and then sucking. It becomes the tree. The same idea. I'm penetrating the sky with these two needles of my hands, and then I suck something down. I have to work quite hard to draw the energy down. It won't just come in. That requires me to use my dantian. So reaching up, and now I just draw my belly in to start this pulling down into myself. And then I reach down, and then again I have to suck in my belly to draw the energy up from the ground. This is more like hunting or fishing. And if you get it to just come naturally with the breathing of your diaphragm, then you feel here, this is actually breathing in. The whole movement from the ground up is breathing in with my nose all the way up to here. And then this is breathing out. Reaching down and pulling something up. Reaching up and pulling something down. So here I'm pulling up the carrots. And here I'm picking the apples. So reaching up and just pull up. And let's try a little bit opening up left and right. Turning away from the center, I open up. Turning back to the center, I come effectively back into riding horse. I close down, open up. This is effectively bow and arrow. Closing down, riding horse. The difficulty is maintaining the sinking through whatever it is that you're doing. Even though my legs are basically strengthening to turn like this leg is straightening, this leg is bending, but not too much, otherwise I'll fall. That will tend to push me up. I still want this feeling that I can drain through these working legs. So you daren't get too excited or too into what you're doing, because that will bring you up. I'm working to bring something up from the ground, but all the time behind that, I'm sinking, I'm draining into the ground. And then just allow it to become this one where we just reach forwards and pull something in. Feel it coming from the ground. As I turn to extend this tentacle, I'm coming into this leg. So a sense that the ground is coming up my left side and into the right arm. Something is coming up and extending out. And then just back into riding horse. Now let's move simply from leg to leg, feeling the filling and the emptying. So this leg is filling. I want to feel it filling from the ground rather than filling from with me. It's filling with, like a pillar of strength comes up to support me. So I come into one leg, that brings the ground up, and it allows the other leg to empty back into the ground. And then this one fills, allowing this one to empty. So it's still breathing, two alternating phases, A, B, A, B, A, B. But both legs are breathing, but alternately. So as one leg breathes in, the other leg breathes out. This, if you like, is the breathing in. I'm breathing the ground in and allowing it to leave the other leg. And the difficulty is the release of the shoulder blade from the spine and the release of the hip bone from the sacrum. As I sink into this foot, what the arm does, it's easier to feel the arm. The arm tends to go out like this in order to claw at the ground, to scoop at the ground. So it's bringing something in. I'm not just pushing something away. I'm reaching out to scoop something in. So let's just try that and just, if you can get it in the arm, then you'll get it in the leg. Feel the release that has to happen here to let the shoulder blade away from the spine. And then you can get the same release here, the hip bone coming away from the sacrum. So you have to be really quite secure on the other leg. This leg mustn't want to get rid of me. I have to be comfortable settling into this leg. Otherwise, all the action here will pull me into it too soon. So I'm opening this side. Let the knee come up, let the heel come up in order to release this here. And scoop. Finally, the body moves. And ideally, the best way to practice this would be to be able to stand on one leg and just reach with the other one with it off the ground. That's going to take a little bit of work. So one of the problems is, how do I lift the leg without it becoming too tense, especially without it pulling in here, because the leg's actually pretty heavy. So to be able to lift it and keep it loose and whippy, everything has to be that much stronger, and our balance has to be that much better. You just have to really sink it into the supporting leg. That will allow the other leg to free up. The more I can support myself here, the more this can open up and become mobile from the sacrum. I'm drawing the ground up until it gets to here, and then I can release the other. Okay, so let's bring it back. You'll be always moving from leg to leg a little bit. almost like this central point is like a real no man's land. So when you're in the middle, you're double weighted. That's the place we want to be able to just slip across, almost like it doesn't exist. You don't move through. You actually jump from leg to leg. So there's a point in the middle where you're almost up in the air, and that's here. Feeling that the geyser, the ground coming up, the complement to the sinking. Sinking is me streaming down, splitting into these two legs. And then the rising is the two legs sending up this spout, on top of which is my thymus bouncing away like the ping pong ball. And now turning. So straightening and bending the leg. We just want to feel that, the straightening immediately followed by bending, as being our basic unit of movement. So I straighten this leg, and I want to straighten it. It just takes a bit of training. You straighten it until it reaches a point where it has to spring back, just trying to trigger the return. So I straighten the leg, and ping, it comes back. Really, I'm only straightening the leg in order to activate that pull. You know, when we started pulling with the legs instead of pushing with them, it just felt so weak. But now it actually feels stronger, this pull back. But it has to be triggered by a sense that this leg has become completely straight. Just go from leg to leg with this, but here we're just trying to keep the spine in the middle and use it to turn. Straighten the leg and let it ping back. It's a bit like a reflex action. Suddenly your nerve is being touched and it makes it spring back. Not something I have to decide to do. I straighten and it arches me. And then the pullback will send me the other way. And now just the one leg. So I'm going to use my right leg to move myself, my left leg to support myself. So I straighten the right leg and I let it spring back. And then I straighten the right leg again, but now it's a front leg. And again, I let it spring back. So straight, spring back, straight, spring back. So if our basic unit of movement is a straightening followed by a bending, that's effectively an attack followed by a yield, a push followed by a pull. So what that means is the postures of Tai Chi, each posture finishes halfway through one of these units. So this would be the end of a posture, and this would be the beginning of the next one, but it springs necessarily out of the previous attack. This is the end, this is the attack, but it has to pull back because it's on a spring. It's like I've stretched a spring here, and then the spring pulls back. Again, I've stretched a spring, and again it pulls back. So it stands to reason, really, you'd expect the attack, the intensity at the end of the posture to be high energy. And then the other leg. Straight, bend, straight, bend. Here I'm stretching something, and then here it springs back. Bow and arrow, riding horse. High energy, low energy. Extreme of single weighted, double weighted. And the secret to all of this is just to keep the mind with it, not to allow it to get onto automatic. Because if you do, the mind will just tend to go AWOL. And now let's try a little bit in bow and arrow proper, so 1 foot forwards. Feel riding horse. Riding horse is where the 2 feet are parallel and you're stuck in the middle. And now using your back leg to straighten, bring this hip round. So now this is high energy. This is real difference between the 2 feet, potential difference, producing a current. And then this is bending that back leg to bring me back to riding horse. And then this is straightening the front leg to bring me back into this high energy position. And then bending the front leg to bring myself into riding horse and straightening the back leg. Bending the back leg, straightening the front leg. Bending the front leg, straightening the back leg. And I'm trying to straighten the leg. You need to straighten the leg so that it will naturally spring back. So if I can get this leg completely straight, then it needs to do this immediately afterwards. And then the back leg straight. Back leg is more difficult to get straight because it's more difficult to get all the weight in the front leg. You want to feel the point where the energy is released. And it's at that ping, that point where the straight starts to bend. It's a bit like if you have something stuck on your hand and you want to get rid of it, you do this. So you give it energy by doing this, and then you pull your hand back and the thing with the energy will fly off. It's the same here. So I'm straightening the back leg to send the hand forwards. And it's at that point of the back leg bending again and the hand pulling back. That's when the energy leaps out of me. And the same here, I'm straightening the leg, and it's at that point of bending it again that the energy flies out. Let's try and pick the other foot forwards. Straightening the back leg and ping. It sort of pulls your hand in, so it's effectively starting to yield, but really it's just releasing the energy, allowing the energy to go on its way. So straighten and bend. Straighten and bend. Okay. And now just moving from leg to leg again. So straighten this leg. Try not to turn too much now. Straighten the leg. And bend the leg. It will pull you back. Straighten the leg. And then we just use it to pull the foot off the ground. So I'm straightening the leg here, and then I bend it and it starts pulling me back. But if I choose, I can use the bending to actually pull that foot up instead of pulling myself towards it. And then I straighten it again, and then I bend it, and then I straighten this leg and bend it. Straighten the leg, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend. So what we want to feel is, if you want it to be really clear and precise, then it's not enough just to put your weight in the foot and then lift the other one. We have to sort of squeeze ourselves into the foot, and that's what's happening here. So I straighten this leg, and what that straightening is doing is getting it ready to bend, but it's also pushing everything into this leg so that when the foot comes up, I have some sort of stability. There's no sense of sort of wobbling. And then I straighten it again, and then I bend it, but it's not enough just to bend it. I have to straighten this leg to make sure I'm completely packed down into this foot before this one can pop up. So I pull, and then I have to straighten this leg to get 100% here, and then this leg can come up. Then I straighten this leg, pull, and straighten this leg to push everything down here, and then this foot can come up. So the foot comes off the ground. It's real high energy. You've become so completely into this foot that this foot is just free. But I want to make sure it's in my body. I haven't just thought, oh yeah, I've got my weight in this foot, I can pick this foot up. It just means you're not really sinking. It means I've put my weight here and I've yanked up here. I want it to all come from this interaction, this breathing with the ground, straightening this leg. This one pops up. Straighten it again to step, bend the leg, straighten this one, and let it pop up. It's actually really difficult. I mean, we've just spent so many years not stepping properly. So when you really straighten this leg, the knee feels as though it's locked straight, but it also feels like something is let go in the hip joint. So then when the foot springs up, it just springs up naturally. I don't have to yank here to pull the leg up. So I straighten the leg and ping, it just pops up because of that natural spring back into the bending. Straightening this leg, feels as though my knee is locked out, but also here feels as though this has just become really loose. And then this almost has a life of its own. And then when we send the foot out to step, in a way, that's the most difficult thing of all. Because what I want to try and do is keep it released here in the hip. So let's just try it. So I bend this leg, I straighten this leg. Okay, this sort of releases. And it's that letting go here as much as it is the tightening of the knee that allows it to ping back. And now here, how do I send this foot out, this leg? It's actually pretty heavy. And so I don't want any sense of it having got tight here. So something has to just slip out. When you get it right, you really feel that you're stepping a lot further than you normally do, because you've got this looseness in the hip. Straighten this leg, let it ping back. And then here, something has to get out. So I want the leg to go out as something is releasing from here. This has to remain free. And it's difficult because it's just a different mind. And we're just not used to having the sort of mind that allows freedom in the hips. It's like a real problem. We don't realize it, but you're walking down the road and you're keeping yourself together. You're using your mind to introduce tension into this area. Because if you were really just to walk freely, you'd have these wobbly hips, you'd be doing this. It would be really loose here. You're like a kid, when you see them just playing around, everything's just really loose. This is what we would like. I straighten this leg and then it pops up. But now here, how do I get it out and keep it loose without wanting to control the leg? And then, so it has to happen naturally. Straight, bend, straight. Something sort of just flows out of me. It's like I've lost something. I've released this flow. It's not even a tentacle. It's even more runny, more fluid, more liquid than a tentacle. It just, something just drains out of you. That's the feeling. So I straighten this leg and the foot pops up. And then again, how do I get it out? Be aware of that, the dual aspect of the body, two sides. So if I want one side to be really loose and silly and fluid and runny, the other side just has to be that much stronger and more firm and more balanced. So everything is settling into this leg. And then this one can then be the opposite. This becomes strong and supportive, allows this foot to pop up, but now this is really interesting because it's not something we're used to. And so it's obviously going to reap rewards, but in the meantime, it's going to cause a lot of pain because it'll come and go. All of these things, these new things, you think, oh yeah, wow, it's amazing. I'll practice this tomorrow. And then of course, tomorrow you can't reproduce it. That's the sign of something that's really important when it seems to elude your grasp. It's like these scientists, Einstein, Wilhelm Reich went to Einstein to talk about orgone energy and everything, told him the experiments he'd been doing. And Einstein was interested, and Einstein got back to him and said, look, I can't reproduce your experiments. You're a fraud, you're a charlatan. And so, it's very different with this. It's like if you can't reproduce the experiment, if you can't reproduce the experience, Just be patient. It's there inside you, and it will reveal itself when you've got over the shock and the exhaustion that that first revelation has produced. I love that retort of Niels Bohr was trying to explain to Einstein quantum theory, which Einstein just couldn't get. You know, Einstein, he said, didn't he, God doesn't play dice. So Niels Bohr was getting exasperated, and he just said, you're not thinking, you're just being logical. And it's beautiful, yeah, because thought is crazy. Real thought is crazy. It's a madness. It's the primacy of the imagination, really. The real is not the actual, it's the imagination, it's the imaginal. I mean, it's a combination of the two, but we tend to think the real is the actual, what's actually there, with a little bit of colour introduced by the imagination, but it's weighted the other way. It's predominantly imaginal, with a tiny bit of actual mixed in. You read those quantum theorists, you know, Niels Bohr, Rogli, Schrödinger, they all came to spiritual insights, almost enlightenment, because of the way their findings was disrupting the world that they thought they were in. Even Max Planck, famous quote of his, he said, consciousness is fundamental. Matter springs from consciousness. Consciousness is a quantum phenomenon. It's operating on that tiny, tiny scale where everything is a possibility. Nothing really exists until you observe it. Bring it up and just finish with a little bit of this. Think of yourself as that blind kitten massaging around the teat of the mother. So the reason they do that is because it stimulates the flow of milk from the teat into their suckling mouth. And in a sense, we're doing the same thing here. We're just encouraging the ground to allow a little bit of energy to trickle up us. And both, Niels Bohr and Erwin Schrödinger, they both got really into Indian philosophy, especially the Vedanta and the Upanishads. So the first real literature on the planet, they had to go back that far in order to make sense of the results that their physics experiments were turning up. So it's almost like, nothing we've really achieved philosophically in the meantime has really made a lot of difference. The only thing we've done is technology. So Alfred North Whitehead, is all Western philosophy is just footnotes to Plato. So it's all there. If it's the same as if you read Homer, even if you read it in English translation, it's so much stronger than anything that's been written in English since. Same as Sophocles. So our technology has weakened us. It's obvious, really. If you're going to make people's lives more comfortable and easier, then they're going to get weaker. But it's still going on. I'm not moving really, but it's going on inside. There's all this movement inside. It's like, when we hold the stick and we pull it very gently or push it very gently. If you can just relax into it, there's this sense that the stick starts to become a little bit rubbery. It starts to take on a little bit of your lively qualities. But this is what the feeling we want with the ground. John always used to say Tai Chi is all about borrowing energy. So I'm borrowing some of that firm, stable security of the ground, but the ground is borrowing some of my life force, some of my lively, playful movement. Okay, right.